good afternoon, or whatever you've got going on right there, right now. It is Friday the 24th here, where I'm at, and I am here for on day, but not quite on time, morning cereal. Again, like I've said before, there's no rules to cereal. You can have it in the evening, too. And today, we get the exciting conclusion and climax left at the end of the second half of Slumberguard 2 Gift Shop. Dr. Jocelyn Holloway had found herself waking up a million years in the future, suffering some memory loss from an accident which she had been sent on this journey to repair. And, she goes there to find the remains of Earth and what's happening there, and learning about the future. And then this is going to be probably a little less than half, because I could not quite bring myself to end it before the two robots that I fashioned after my friends Rena and Colleen made their appearance at the end. GR13 and Beano. So they are now embarking, the security droids are, to bring Dr. Holloway to a place in the gift shop where the owner, Mr. Winter's Goop, needs her to help him so that he can fulfill his promise of providing her with a means of transport to go out and find a place to live. So we pick up right where they are leaving to go into the gift shop from the offices of Winter's Goop. Hope you enjoy it. This is the conclusion of Slumberguard 2 Gift Shop. Last time. So I guess you're my guards for the gift shop, I sort of didn't ask. Yes, answered GRR. I don't like that part. Our ultimate goal is delivering you to the ones you'll be working with. I like to think about that part. You see, I'm not much of a question and answer robot. All those details in the order they happened, or who was involved. Hey, where did that man's leg go? Or why did my lunch just give birth? I'm a thinking robot. Don't get me wrong, I'm delighted to meet you. Don't let the gift shop overwhelm you. We will both be with you the entire way, answering any questions you may have. I love helping others learn new things. Placing my hand on my hips, I said, You know you just completely contradicted yourself, don't you? The robot was still for a moment, then placed her paddled hand on her middle. Now I don't know which way I think. We should get going. We need to take this crib to the other one, and then fun. Turning to me, she went on, Actually, for you, it will probably not so much fun, as... She paused for a moment. Oh, what's the word? Disdain, called out Beano. No, barked GRR. Disgust, Beano giggled. Cheerfully, GRR said, Yes, that's it. Disgust. Large, polished stone doors slid open with a gravelly scrape, an aroma escaping the other side. Musky and warm meat, it quickly made me want to rip my stomach out. Beano had just finished assembling something and handed it to me. After a moment, I understood it was a mask. Giving her a muffled thanks, I turned my attention to the gift shop. Don't thank me yet, Beano answered. If I had an eye mask, I'd give you that too. Stop it, Beano, GRR tried, saying nicely. Sights you can't unsee, Beano muttered, just saying. Anyway, GRR was genuinely nice now. Just step through and take it in. The entire cavern is the gift shop. Whether it had been found hollow or carved out, the effect was quite stunning. Quickly, I estimated the empty space was as high as the Statue of Liberty Plus, and twice that in width and depth. Beginning above where we stood, there were openings that could lead to a cave, but the front reminded me of a cross between the theater box and a cart on Portobello Road. They surrounded the emptiness all the way to the ceiling, which looked more on this side like a force field rather than the courtsy look I saw as I returned from retrieving the crib. It was as if you could see the night and the day at the same time. It was dark and shadowy where we stood, but The higher you went, the brighter the air was. Eventually, close to the top, the stone on the balconies and walls crystallized, adding a fantastical light show to the cave. At least the upper part. You will notice how exciting. Is that the right word? GRR hummed. I'm going with enticing. How enticing the upper levels are. All the best stuff is up there. The high-ticket items. Members-only access. Criminals. All of them, slurred Beano. Danger zone, she sang, then slumped forward. GR13 ignored her. The lower you go, the lower the quality and or legality of the products are likely to be. Generally, everything below the members' museum is a collection of market stalls rented out to merchants who, again, have legitimate businesses in looser terms the further down you go, which brings us to here, the bottom. As much as I could see in the shadows, there were also small cave openings around the perimeter. Some had curtains hung or a flag. There were a few with a piece of wood or metal propped up, leaving enough space to enter. On the cavern floor, there were a few tents set up, as well as things I recognized from the distant past. What stood out the most was the Airstream trailer, one of the smaller ones, like in that Cyndi Lauper video. It had been painted fire engine red. Most of your criminal element wanders down here. Everything from weapons to hitmen to changing your identity, GR13 had only inched forward. They took a guy's face off once, Beano chimed in, and when they went to put the new one on, his original face had grown back. Oh, for crying out loud, GR sighed. He didn't know his father was a Lastonian. To me, she said, as if I understood, they have all that extra skin tucked away, you know. While signs of life were shadowy, they did exist. Anything that was caught in the light was either so alien or so robotic that I thought possibly humans stay out of the dirt in the future. I was wrong. Out of the shadows to the left, a human man stepped. Standing just out of the shadows, he was dressed kind of like a Victorian vampire. For a moment, I actually wondered if that's what we'd become. Why is he dressed like that? I whispered. At her normal volume, GRR answered. Oh, the humans all got vote crazy, and one thing they voted on was the style of dress. In a stern tone, she called out, Move along. We don't need anything. Then back to me. We're not programmed to police this level, besides protecting a VIP. Barely audible, the gaunt man said. Need something? Rolling in front of me, GRR said, Look, I already told you we are not interested. Now I have to warn you of our complete disinterest. Stepping a little closer, he appeared completely calm, but with my newfound instinct, this was no type of human I could recognize. You need to try this. Now more confident, he boldly stepped closer. Don't let him get close. You'll have no choice but to try it. GRR had held her arm out as if I was about to run at him. Human parasite, there will be no other warnings. His demeanor changed, and he smiled as if he had forgotten how. Sorry about that. I totally misread the situation. My apologies. It unnerved me how he never stopped looking at me. Losing his smile, he said softly, as if puzzled, Clean human. It was his countdown, for then he lurched towards me, beginning to reach his arms out. A beam of pink light came from behind me, hitting the man square in the chest. The light enveloped him until he was unseen within it. The pink shade began to deepen until it was a bright red. The light then retreated where I saw Beano holding a wide-barreled gun. What remained in front of me afterwards is hard to describe. As if a man had been crafted from taffy, then left in the sun for a few hours, he struggled to stay upright. Totally nude, there were areas of skin like vitiligo, except instead of pigment, it was various fabrics or hair. Eyeless and earless, he began to quiver. With a smacking noise, a lipless mouth opened, and he gurgled excruciatingly. Do you want to tell me what I just experienced? I had to face GRR. I couldn't look. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but in the now, all humans are big-time drug dealers. Somewhere along the way, they found a planet just rich with drugs, horrible drugs. Before anyone knew it, they had traded drugs for technology and security, the best life-ruining drugs you could buy. They have devised many traps on their person, ready to enforce an addiction, turning a possible enemy into an instant client. How in the world could they know their drugs would work? I asked. It's that planet, GRR told me. No one can get to it and study it. Of course, they did create problems in their genetics, but with the drug use. So they voted to stop using. And when those who were still coherent enough could get the votes, they used a synthesized formula to end the effects on humans, but I think they still get little residual effects. Wow, I shook my head. So all humans are pretty much hated now. Pretty much, GR answered, as she rolled back and forth over the evaporating goo that had been a human. No offense, I don't think of you as a human, as them. Kind of like a human prototype before everyone started screwing with them. I've started calling these ones pushers. Smiling to myself, a thought occurred to me, so I asked, "Why in the world did you bring me to this part of the gift shop?" "Oh, good," said GRR. "I was wondering if you were doing some sort of grieving thing. No? Okay, so we're here because this is where you'll be working." Turning to face me, her face rippled pleasantly as she spoke. "Just walk behind me, and Bino will follow after. You can look, but don't touch, and don't make eye contact. I couldn't tell you how many times I've accidentally bought outlawed Andromeda children contraception mines, or put a hit out on Bino." "Can I get a heads up on our destination?" I asked, not expecting an answer, but one came, the literal one. "To that little red building," GRR said. Then, looking around herself, she said, "Where's my purse?" "I can't find my purse." Then she stopped and straightened. "Oh, yeah, I don't have a purse. What was I thinking? Well, time to get to work earning whatever Goop promised." Holding her arm, the paddled hands grew by about 3 times their size, and the whole paddle was rippling. GR13 rolled forward towards the trailer. As instructed, I followed behind. "Well, isn't that just nice?" said Bino. Then louder she called to the others as she began to roll. "Not even going to thank me. That was my good oil guy, too." Trying to concentrate on where we were going was difficult, not to mention why. The quiet was broken as we passed each cave. As if there was a proximity alert, some form of life emerged. They were mostly aliens, to me, some looking similar, but with different texture of skin or amount of faces. There were some that bounded out as if they were some sort of animal that they resembled. Things I could only guess at being hair or nail, claws. Few humans were actually present, too. Almost each, might as well say person, scanned me. Then some began to speak, or rather sell, at me in English. Most could not, only pleading with their eyes and hands, or feet, or bills. One thing was in common for each, a glowing band of energy around their necks. While some appeared uncomfortable about the proximity of the band to their neck skin, others seemed to have a roomier fit, creating a less nervous attitude. As if reading my mind, Bino said, "The employees' band is attuned with their quota." She always sounded like she was sharing a conspiracy. "If they meet their quota, they can continue working. If they surpass it, they may just remove them and quit." Already regretting asking, I did anyway. "What if they don't make their quota?" They had come upon the first of the tents. Bino pointed towards it. Out of the opening, 2 large blue snakes slithered, except instead of heads, there were little hands. As they emerged, I saw they joined at the end, but at the head, turning to one long, thin middle area before 2 long, snaky legs with little feet following. The band was around the neck. The band was around the neck beneath a small head that was human-shaped, but facially more reptilian. Obviously, the band was tight, and the creature was struggling. Weakly raising the scanner in one of the little hands, it viewed the results and set it down. If anything, I expected to sound kind of a whispery or hissy sound, but in a creepy revelation, it sounded human. A human who was being choked. "Please," the creature struggled, as its arms did to hold itself up. "Buy something from me. We can find something you need." It coughed, then picked right back up again. "You're human. You need a ship." "No." It was answering for me with difficulty. "You're still weaponless. I have Acme lasers." The arms buckled, and it fell face first onto the stone. Head rising, it said, "Special deal. Buy 30, get 20 free." "You're clean. I can get you." "No, you're not Turning onto its side, skinny, scaly legs and arms sticking out, it raised its head and struggled to tell me, "I can help you remember." "Don't engage them," GRR said, breaking the spell. There wasn't any use, as I had no money. "Wait," the pitiful thing cried out as we moved away. "I have a child, a daughter. Please buy something." Eventually, we were out of earshot, and I struggled to choke back the tears. "They all lie," Bino told me. "There is no child, no children at the gift shop, unless you count GRR 13, because only a child would run to Winter Scoop and tell him I have a lubricant problem." GR whipped around, and her face was choppy. "Are you kidding me with this right now? You told Goop yourself, you thermometer. Got all lubed up and went to his office asking if you could make tire treads across him. You actually recorded the whole thing. Told him I killed the cashier, but I'm not moaning. So can we please get back to it?" Bino thought for a moment, then said, "Yeah, we're good." The red trailer was a surprise. When I asked what it was, I was told it was the Weapons Manufacturing and Distribution Center. Within the little red arrow stream was the exact opposite of the cavern outside, all made more evident by the number of people within. Opening the door was a man I thought was human until the breeze blew him back into the trailer like a dust. Right away, the particles of the man returned, and he was whole again, welcoming me inside. There were 3 people in the bulkhead. One looked human, female, athletic, but I'm just not sure if I'll ever trust anything again. Next was a generally humanoid man, pale yellow, with a white feathered breast. His face was tattooed in white in a design that wound around his features. The third one I wasn't sure about, but I was leaning towards cyborg. Obviously the same race as Mr. Goop. The blue gel was more in the shape of a large puppy. The rattling difference was the robotic skeleton within the gel form. Concerned about my guards, I saw they had somehow entered and were now pressed alongside the wall where a mini kitchen had once been at some point. Closing the door, the one who looked like a normal man did so until he separated into confetti floating over to and reassembling at a small corner table. GR13 spoke first, introducing me to the group as I had seen them. "Dr. Holloway, the kind doorman is General 11-2 on loan from the Will-o'-the-Wisp Particulate. You will report to him." The man looked up from the table long enough to nod. "The trampy one is Lesa. Claims to be human, yet refuses to prove it. An expert in interstellar weaponry. The pretty one is a vehicle. Lingerie is the tattoo." On the face, the entire collection of designs nodded on the pretty one's face. "They are one and other from the IUS system. These are your communications expert. The cyborg here," continued GRR, "is Vice Wonka Midsummer's Toot. They have strange military titles. The VW handles weapons distribution and heads the rebellion." The gel around the robot jiggled. Looking around at basically nothing, I said, "You manufacture weapons here?" Everyone heartily acquiesced. "Sorry, but you manufacture and distribute weapons from here." Everyone continued nodding as if what I said was normal, except for General 11-2, who wafted my way. "I think we have a culture gap, my friends." Looking at me, he cocked his head and asked, "How many weapons do you want?" It was unexpected. I wasn't sure how to process the meaning of it. "Let me put it this way." He floated around the tiny space in a tinier circle. "You have to get from here to the door where you enter the cavern, where you would be safe. Say you can take 3 of us even. Everyone out there has a weapon, and they're untethered by the restraints. How many weapons would you want for the 4 of you to where you would feel confident attempting it?" My mind was a whirl of information being thrown around and pieced together. His context was a great help as I tried to factor what we could carry. It was insane, and I couldn't believe I was having to answer this. 16 large guns of some sort, 16 hand weapons, and 3 or 4 each of some style of grenade. The general turned his back to me, but there I saw GRR-13, who was pointing behind her. Stepping to the side, I saw Bino sitting next to a pile of weapons that I decided I didn't need to count. Wow, I guess I didn't understand yet. Looking at GRR, I asked, "Have you ever been part of a robot uprising?" It could have been my imagination, but I swear the interior of the trailer pulled in as the others took a sharp breath. GRR was thinking, face as calm as a pond. Then a ripple appeared. "Robot what?" she asked. The other's eyes were pleading, imploring even, and my instincts were telling me nothing. Robot uprising, like Terminator, very sci-fi. Everyone turned their attention from me to GRR. Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of those two words together before. You could have heard a pin drop as she thought. What's one robot going to do? You know what I'm saying? Everyone gleefully agreed, congratulating her for arriving at such a logical conclusion. Trying to extract my involvement in that matter, I asked, "Who do you sell the weapons to?" Grateful for the distraction, everyone focused back on me. It was the VW who answered, slamming his fist down on the table with a delicious thud. "Goop, the sour-assed scoundrel. He thinks he can hold back the resistance." Thinking about the logic of the situation made my head hurt since it wasn't logical. So abandoning that line of questioning, I finally got around to asking, "What is it you, or oddly Goop, need me to do?" The general opened his mouth, but I heard GRR say, "You know what? I processed it and concluded that I am not just one robot, am I?" Everyone had completely frozen, except the VW, who shook. Bino asked in a frightened voice, "You're not? How many are you?" With excitement, she asked, "Is one of you that robot in my head telling me what everything is?" After a glance from GRR, she became more assertive. "Oh, yes, you are definitely more than one robot." A pinging noise began inside her cart. "And we are most absolutely definitely more than just two." Screams began to come from outside, echoing through the caverns. Others joined in. Everything we've done for centuries, keeping them away from the idea. It was one and other. The vehicle's face was still as the tattoo moved to mimic a face speaking. "What have you done?" she asked. With a gurgling sound, she liquefied, followed by the other three. Turning, mouth open, I saw the robots put their guns away. "What a brilliant idea," GRR said. "Robot uprising. Who knew?" "I can't wait," chirped Bino. "Do I have time to change color?" "I don't see why not," answered GRR, who then turned back to me. "You'll have to stay here for the next few days, until I come to take you to your ship, Jocelyn." "Do you think all of that is still going to happen?" I asked, incredulously. "Of course," she answered. "The uprising is beginning down here. It'll take time to reach the upper levels. Until then, it will be business as usual for Winter's Goop. Anyone arriving will have no knowledge of the uprising." "Until we're done," contributed Bino. Her face didn't ripple, but her muffled voice said, "We should start by securing the oil reserves." Then her face rippled as she nonchalantly added in her normal voice, "Sounds good to me." GRR wheeled towards me, and I instinctively stepped back, at which she stopped. Her face was rippling in slow motion now, but she said nothing. Then I stepped forward and thanked her, which perked her up. "I'm not supposed to tell you this," GRR began, "but my priorities have kind of changed. The ship that is coming, the one Goop said he would give to you, the pilot came out of the first crib. He made the mistake of not securing the connection. Goop discovered that he wants the crib because he found a way to separate from the Guardian. Having such an antique as a Guardian would be extremely profitable, especially paired with the crib." "You see what I mean?" she asked, not waiting for an answer. "How good is one fortune compared to two?" Seeing enlightenment on my face, she went on, "You were never going to get the ship, Dr. Holloway. But thanks to you, you now have a chance." "I only have 4 cans of silicone oil," commented Bino. "Well, might as well just do them before we head out." Her hands were pumping the oil cans before she was even done speaking. "Everything will be fine, Jocelyn," GRR-13 said persuasively. The next few days were anything but quiet. Even after the screams died with their screamers, the shooting of guns and energy weapons and sonic blasts went on and on. Yet nothing disturbed the trailer. Without understanding how the refrigerator was full of food, I feasted on mostly blandness in the form of possible fruits, dubitable vegetables, various flavored suspected food wafers, and some transparent pink liquid with something sleeping in the bottom of the pitcher. In an interesting turn of events, the claptrap that persisted outside somehow took me deep into dreams of reality. I remembered my childhood and my parents. I'm an only child. It was all there concerning growing up and dating, getting my degrees, free to do what I wanted, free to do what they wanted. Tears streamed down my sleeping face. Meeting my husband again took my breath away again. And I'm a mother, was a mother. Such sweet little angels, too young to have understood. The sound of familiar voices floated my way. I don't know how you wake a human, and look for holes. Maybe she has a port. Coming to, I blinked my eyes, discovering GRR-13 and Beano in the trailer. Had it been 3 days already? I'm going to be honest, Jocelyn, GRR admitted. Everything is not fine. Everything was not fine. The uprising had escalated faster than anticipated. It was only a matter of time before they took the uppermost levels, which is where we were headed. The word had already begun to spread concerning the skirmish, halting most traffic. The good news was that, whether aware of the trouble or not, the spaceship had arrived. The pilot had not teleported over yet. When I woke up, I was already dressed in armor Beano had made for camouflage. All I had to do was add the sleek helmet. Refusing at first, they made me at least carry a weapon to look less obvious. It turned out to be a blessing as we rose in levels. Staying out of the way tunnels, we hardly encountered anyone until we were about halfway. There were colorful corpses, sparking robots, and from time to time a small tussle which GRR resolved. Approaching the upper levels, things really quieted down. Occasionally we encountered a scout or something charging ahead on their own. I suppose due to our path, GRR and Beano simply destroyed the robots right away. One floor below the hangar, I asked, where did Beano go? She had a personal mission, was the answer. We were at the mouth of a cave. Across from us, robots poured into the cave like ants, carrying a smooth black orb on their backs. Feeling a tingle where she was grabbing my hand, GRR pulled me along, saying, we need to hurry. One level up, we encountered the same type of cave as below, except one side opened into space like the hangar where I had stepped out. Taken aback, I couldn't help but smile looking out into the space. Alongside the asteroid was a spaceship that was like the one on that old television show. There was a man standing on the far side waiting. My breath caught short, and I brought my hand to my chest. After dreaming about him, it was strange to see someone so like my husband. It wasn't possible, though. Even my memory remembers him older than that, but not by much. Catching his eye, he kind of scowled, pointing to his chest. Embarrassed, I quickly took my hand away, then waved to him. This seemed to amuse him, and he waved back. Then he was distracted by Winter's Goop coming to meet him. I couldn't take my eyes off of him as he did a little bow to his host. Something wasn't all there. My instincts were loving him, but it's like I was missing something. Where's the other one? Just fell out of my mouth, and my brows rose. My boys were twins, but they were children. He looked my way again, and I remembered it must look like a robot staring. Before I could remove the helmet, the floor erupted. The growing sphere below had crashed through the floor, growing until it almost reached the top of the cavern. Sadly, the sphere lifted me, and when stopped, I began to slide forward. Not close enough to the opening into space, my concern was the crevice awaiting my descent. And as I began to enter the depth, a hand grabbed my armored one. "Hold on," said the man from the ship, pulling me to safety. All I could do was stare, almost getting it. "Are you okay? Is anything damaged?" The question snapped me out of it, and I lifted off my helmet. His expression made me stagger back. tears starting a journey, he asked, "Mom?" Looking down at the helmet, it hadn't occurred earlier that it was the first mirrored surface I had seen. In the reflection was the face of an old woman, almost the face of my mother. Looking at him, I asked, "Who are you?" Trying to keep from approaching me, he answered, "Jeremy." Crying out, I collapsed in his arms. "How did we get so old, my baby?" "I don't understand," cried Jeremy. "Dr. Lindbergh did something. He says he fixed me, but I can't remember anything after the accident. Wait, what about Jeffrey?" Hesitating, he admitted, "He's my guardian. That's why we came back here." The crib began emitting a signal as we had discovered a way to separate from the guardian. It would bring Jeff back. "How in the world is that possible?" I asked my son. "The process must be repeated with different settings. Even your guardian possesses the knowledge now. But now I don't know how to get to the crib. I mean, cribs," he smiled. Fishing in my pocket, I smiled back. "Well, you'll find these useful for that." He looked at the mesh discs I had given him. Someone touched my back then. "Who was that?" I said as I turned around. Across the new chasm, Winter's goop had a tentacle he was absorbing back into himself. Another shorter appendage had a mesh disc in it. Turning back, Jeremy looked puzzled as I felt a charge of electricity at the small of my back. Before my son's hand could reach mine, I was yanked backwards. As I passed over the opening created by the sphere, I saw they had moved it closer to the opening, underneath Jer. Even before I landed by Mr. Goop, I was screaming, "Hurry! Go now!" Then pointing below, "Now!" With a deep sadness in his eyes, he was whisked away to the ship. It moved just before the sphere rose, and the opening exploded. As air was pulled from me, I was whisked backwards again into the safety of a lower cave. Facing Goop, he looked worse for the wear. Tiny mouths could have been nibbling at him. The lavender gel was kind of cloudy. "What a mess," he finally said in a muffled voice. "There are whispers that you started this." "Then why did you save me?" I asked. "For the enjoyment of killing you myself before making my escape." The cavern looked as if it shook, but I felt nothing. So maybe it had been my eyes. Winter's goop was unaffected, more still than ever, in fact. Suddenly he bounced into two smaller halves, then four, and on, until tinier Mr. Peanuts were dividing until they fell into diminishing particulate. Behind, where he had been, was Beano. "Wow, Dr. Holloway, you sure look beautiful in the mist of death. Now let's get you to your crib before this place comes undone." To be continued. Firstly, "Is Jeremy okay?" Jocelyn asked into the phone. She sounded worried. "I'm having bad dreams." It was timing that had me stopped in the room where the Slumberguard executives were listening in on a phone call. The woman's voice was sad and empty. Knowing what I knew made me sad for her. "You make sure and watch out for him, Jeffrey," she said, always concerned. "You know when you were born you came out first, to make sure it was safe for him." Several men were shooing me into the room with Jeff. Looking at the file in my hands, an idea was trying to get off the ground. While working on a second version of the crib, I also began visiting Dr. Jocelyn Holloway, Jeff and Jeremy's mother. It was easy to visit under the guise of a personal physician, and some of the examinations began to bring out conversation. She didn't have dementia or Alzheimer, but it was brain damage mimicking them. The problem was to repair the unfamiliar damage, yet the answer was already there. Moving the crib to my lab was risky, but it would have been lost when we were raided. Trying to finish all of my adjustments proved impossible. The day I checked Jocelyn out on a day pass, shockingly easy for a relative stranger, there was definitely someone following us. It could have been the feds, or just as likely the company Slumberguard stole from, or a rival company. Parking in a garage and closing the door, I led Jocelyn around the house, through the backyard, a door in the wooden fence, across a little creek and up a woodsy hill to the parking lot of a block of warehouses. "All you have is fruit, Dr. Lindbergh. Dr. Holloway asked, looking in the mini-fridge. I like fruit, okay? I was checking the crib over and over. Can you remember the word default? Of course I can, she said stuffily. There was a pounding on the door somewhere else. You better get in the crib. I'm not a baby, she proclaimed, and then excitedly, oh my God, am I? How long have I been a baby? I'm tired of being a baby. She had crawled in. 2 men in cheap suits entered the lab. A single shot hit me in the chest, and I fell to the floor. Jocelyn was looking at the screen now. Oh, look, I found it, she said, and pressed default. The crib stopped humming as the lid shut. Looking at the panel of the crib, one of the men shook his head at the other. It was useless to them now, so they left with a slight glance at my body. When they were gone, I reached up and grunted as I pulled the metal box down. It swung from its coiled cord. Raising up onto my knees, I twisted the knob until the avatar appeared on the screen, floating, clear, potato-filled, with milky phosphorescence and glittering flecks of jewels. Don't worry, I choked out. Dr. Holloway, I'm coming. Reaching up, I placed my palm on the avatar.